Where are you questioning your instincts in the hiring process? And more importantly, why? In this video, I want to talk more on the why behind the what in our decisions, and particularly when those decisions bring about some probably unnecessary stress. Sometimes stress is unavoidable, but where are we sometimes creating unnecessary stress with our decisions, and specifically in the hiring process? And I'm bringing up this topic because I see this coming up frequently with the managers that I work with and managers that I've worked with in the past. And when we make decisions that are essentially going against ourselves, because when we're going against our instincts, that's ultimately, or in a sense, what we're doing is we're going against ourselves. And that's why we feel this resistance. And you'll be able to tell by going back to your emotions and thinking about how you're actually feeling in the moment. But when we're under stress, it could be in the hiring process, it could be in another area, we're not often taking a moment to get present and think about, okay, well, how am I really feeling and why am I feeling this way? And when we do this, you can do it in an after action review, which we'll talk about as well. It can help us to better understand, get to the root cause of the why behind the what, why it is that we're making the decisions that are ultimately holding us back. So maybe in the hiring process, maybe you just recently made a great hire. So if that's you, congratulations. But was there some unnecessary stress during the process? And if so, let's take a little bit deeper look there and see how you can improve moving forward. And in this video, I'll share a few examples from the field, so some leadership examples, and I will also share a personal story where I went against my own instincts. So even though this is something that I talk about a lot and I teach, there's always room for improvement in certain areas in our lives. Maybe we improve one area, but then maybe that challenge is still showing up in another area. And if that happens, no problem. It's part of life, and it's all about improving. And in order to improve, we just want to draw some awareness there. So my personal story example, where I went against myself, I ended up creating a missed opportunity, and then I'll share what I did to improve moving forward. So closing out the video, you'll have some takeaways to hopefully help you moving forward. And so this video is for hiring managers, of course, to help you in the hiring process, and specifically in alleviating some unnecessary stress by drawing some awareness to where that stress is coming up and why, and what decisions you are making to influence what's your outcomes. But remember, you can take and apply these concepts to other areas in your life too, and I promise you they will improve. So even if you're not a hiring manager and the concept sounds interesting, stick around, because I think that you'll get something out of it. So the first example, let's see how I want to share this here. So sometimes I'll speak with a hiring manager and we're talking about candidates in process. Sometimes it's my candidate. There have been many examples where I have talked my hiring manager client out of interviewing my candidate because things maybe change a little bit, dynamics of the process change a little bit. Sometimes as we start to move throughout the process, sometimes the candidate profile can expand a little bit, or it can shift just depending on the candidates that we have in the mix. And there's a process for a reason. So a lot of times, and I always appreciate when hiring managers are open to different types of candidates, sometimes, experience and background wise, because sometimes we've got stellar candidates, the right candidate that often checks some of the boxes and not all. And so while I think it's super a super strong quality as a leader to be open to your candidate profile, when you know in your gut, and with I'm never suggesting that we base our decisions solely on our gut. We want to use our instinct, our emotions, our intuition to inform our next direction. What do I need to disprove here or prove here based on the feeling that I'm having here? And if the information is of my current candidate pool, I have candidates that are better qualified. You want to remember that your time is valuable, and you must prioritize it as such, because otherwise you're going to get burnt out and highly stressed in the interview process. And I did a poll just real quick a while back on the areas during the interview process that cause the most stress for managers. And of course, one was the time it takes to invest in doing the actual interviews. Very time consuming. It can be a great experience too. You can have great energizing conversations with candidates and vice versa with leaders, but it can also be draining. It takes a lot of energy. So you really want to prioritize your focus there. So if your gut instinct is telling you, also based off of the information that you have, that this candidate that you were planning to interview actually now is maybe not as good of a fit as these other candidates that I have in play, then it makes sense to maybe hold off on interviewing that candidate. But hiring managers are nice people and will sometimes want to go ahead and interview the candidate anyhow. Anyway, I've heard a couple of examples. The manager instinctively knows that the candidate is probably not a fit, not as strong as a fit as some of the other candidates currently in process. But just in case, let me go ahead and interview them because I don't want to miss out. Okay, so fear of missing out. So this is fear-based. Anytime, real quick, fear versus intuition reminder to help lock this in the hiring process and in other areas. Anytime we are basing a decision going against ourselves, not intuitively, and then basing the decision on fear, it's always going to take us further from where we want to be. In this case, distracting you, causing maybe some potential burnout, some added stress in the interview process, just spreading yourself too thin. Another example, the candidate seemed strong initially upon presenting, and it doesn't mean that the candidate is not a strong candidate just for that particular role, maybe that particular organization. There's a right fit and enough success to go around for everyone, but we're not all a fit for every organization, every job, and that's okay. It's just, again, we want to prioritize our time, and give our time toward what is meaningful and what is ultimately going to be right for us. So anyhow, the candidate seemed strong initially, and then when some additional information surfaced, we learned, okay, probably not quite a fit for this particular role. Well, the manager still planned on taking this candidate to lunch for an interview. So if you think about it, I mean, anytime you're a hiring manager conducting an interview, you're investing and or losing more time than just the actual interview itself, because you are taking time away from to shift your focus from what you're doing, your task at hand, and losing that momentum. Whenever we shift our focus, that's a distraction. If it's an in-person interview, you're traveling to get there, you're preparing a little bit before the interview, having your questions, looking over the candidate resume and LinkedIn and recruiter notes. This all takes a lot of brain power, and of course it takes time. And then you've got the actual interview, and then you've got the time after to get your focus back shifted to what you were working on. And so if you have a 1 hour in-person interview, a lot of times it can go over. You're looking at a 3-hour time block for a candidate that you already know is not a fit. And then another example, I was working with a leader, super nice guy. And the hiring managers are often just really nice people. Leaders are people that we want to work with. So they're usually really nice. That's part of the reason that they got to the role that they're in. We want to work with them. So we had scheduled the interview with this candidate, but then again, we got some additional information, learned, okay, actually for this role, our other candidates are probably going to be a better fit. And it wasn't even probably. In this particular example, it was definitely not a fit, but the manager said, I'll go ahead and do the Zoom interview. So I'm going to go ahead and do a 45-minute Zoom interview because I said I would. So this is, okay, what's the why behind the what there? To be nice. Okay, but what's the real why? Why are we choosing to be nice and take 45 minutes of your time to do an interview, which, as I just spoke to, a 45-minute phone, Zoom, in-person interview is all going to take longer than 45 minutes because you are shifting your focus, you're preparing, you're doing the interview, then you're shifting your focus back. It takes time to build up momentum. And another factor, when we know that we haven't invested our time well, this is likely going to slow you down because now you're working with a distracted focus. Because even if you don't voice it and realize it underneath you're frustrated because you know deep down that you didn't prioritize your time well. So let's look a little bit. I mentioned a little bit on, the what behind, or the why behind the what, but let's dig a little bit deeper here. So, okay, not wanting to miss out, just in case. Well, this is fear based. I need to interview all candidates or most candidates presented because I don't want to miss out on a candidate, but you already have other candidates that we just spoke about that are stronger for your particular role. So it's okay. It makes more sense to hold off on this candidate. So in this particular scenario where the manager wanted to just make sure that they covered all of their bases, the just in case interview, they were just coming off of, or recently coming off of a couple of bad hires. So when that happens, we feel beat down a little bit. And what do? We question our instincts. So instinctively, this manager knew, okay, probably not going to be a fit, but let me interview them anyway. Take up more of your time that you already don't have. This is time away from interviewing your other candidates, time away from leading your team who needs you as well. You're still choosing to go against your instincts and interview this candidate. I was able to talk the manager out of interviewing the candidates because I want my managers to prioritize their time. And also, are we really being nice to a candidate by taking up their time, shifting their focus from their priorities? They likely have a current role. Maybe, yes, they want the interview, but if they're not a fit, we don't want to move a candidate forward in the process where we already know we're pretty certain that they're not going to be a fit. Remember, we're taking up their time too. So they are taking time to research and prepare for the interview, then do the time block for the actual interview, then follow back up with you. Then they think that they might be a fit, so they're continuing to research. So are we really being nice to that candidate? But instead of, moving when we're coming off of a bad hire, a bad couple hires, and we're questioning our instincts. This is fear-based. We don't want to make the same mistakes, so we're kind of just grabbing at the decision that seems like, okay, this might be the right decision. We're not thinking clearly because we're scared, right? And whenever we're stressed or we have some fear, we're not in the mind to make the most sound decisions. And I'm sure you can just think of some examples from your own life, personal and professional. And so then it's best to just wait and not make any decision when we're feeling super stressed. And then once the emotions settle, then you can reflect, kind of, I like to think of it as to kind of stepping outside of yourself and looking in at the decision. Well, you can't really do that in the heat of the moment. So you can just give it an hour, give it a day. That candidate, if they go somewhere in a day, meaning they get snatched up with another opportunity, well, it wasn't the right fit anyway. So we don't want to make our decisions, based on fear. So those are a couple of examples. And we talked about the time that ends up being invested and or wasted a lot more than just the actual interview. And I want to share, before I go into some takeaways on what you can do moving forward, I'll just share a specific example. So in the past, I can think of two specific examples. I'm sure that there's many, many more where I lost opportunities. I created a missed opportunity by basing my decision on fear, and I didn't get the opportunity to work with these clients moving forward. So I was talking with, in both of these scenarios, two prospective clients, different opportunities. And of course, I have a process that I take my prospective clients through. And I know that my process is ideal. It's optimal, both for myself and for my potential client, so that I can get the information I need to better understand if I can give them what it is they're looking for, and to give them also in return the information that they need to help them assess if I'm potentially a good fit, to work with them. But in both of these scenarios, I think one was a second or third conversation with the client, and then the other one was a first conversation. And what I did that lost the opportunity, created the missed opportunity, was I went against my instincts in letting the client dictate the process, the next step in the process. And I knew, instinctively in that moment, I knew that I lost the opportunity because instinctively I felt a resistance in honoring their request because I knew that I didn't have enough information to be able to fully honor their request. And I needed to understand why they were requesting the information that they were requesting. And then that information would help me better deliver. Okay. So now, but I went ahead and complied with what they were asking. And I knew you just lost this, Amy. You just created a missed opportunity for yourself. Okay, so that's the what, but the important part is why. Why did I make that choice? And so on the more recent experience scenario here that I just mentioned, I thought about it. So in the later, once I found out, okay, they're not interested in moving forward right now. Of course, I was frustrated at myself. Why? Because I went against my instincts. I knew that I needed more information, but why didn't I vocalize that? Why didn't I do what I needed to do to try to get that information? And so I thought about it. Not that day because I was maybe it was later that day. In the heat of the moment, I'm stressed. I'm frustrated. So in the heat of the moment, I'm just feeling the feelings. I'm allowing the feelings to surface. Why? Because they're clues. Yes, it's uncomfortable, but if I just deny it, push it aside, and go reach for some instant gratification, I'm not going to take away the lesson from it to then be better equipped moving forward. And then I'm going to help even less people because I'm not prepared, with my process. So either later that day or the next day, I thought about it and I realized, oh, you made that decision in both of these scenarios because why? You didn't want to bother the client. You didn't want to bother them. Okay, so let's dig deeper at that. I'm really big on root cause. And once you get to the root cause, well, then you can provide the solution. And I learned this a long time ago through the practicing for years, even decades, the practice of self-reflection and introspection. Just I've always been very curious by nature since I was a little kid. And so I'm always looking for the deeper meaning. I want to understand things on a deeper level. And so I just somehow instinctively knew within myself, even from the time I was very young, that to feel better, to solve problems, I'm going to need to dig deeper. And I was always just curious, trying to get to the why. So, in my younger years, it took me many years to get to the root cause of some of the bigger challenges that I ultimately overcame. But now, because I've implemented this process so many times, and you can do the same as well, you can get there much faster. So it's uncomfortable to go through because it involves taking responsibility for our actions, our role that ultimately resulted in the undesired outcome. So anyhow, okay, so I got to the emotion or the reason. Well, I didn't want to bother the client, so I wanted to give them what it was they thought that they needed. But I'm actually the expert on my process. It doesn't mean that if I take them through the process, that's going to be the right process, that it's necessarily going to be a fit, but I will have done themselves and myself due diligence. Okay. But back to the root cause. Why would I feel like I'm bothering them? Where else is that challenge or has that emotion shown up in my life? And then I knew, of course, right away. I said, oh, aha. And then I realized, okay, even though I've done all of this work to overcome that untrue belief from many, many, many years back that I'm a bother. Well, oh, you know what? It still showed up right over here. And when this happens, it's not drawing awareness to the situation is not so that you need to beat yourself up. You need to feel bad about it. It's just information. And it's going on it creates a better understanding of why we do what we do. And then this increases your self-awareness, and the better you understand yourself, the better you can understand others. So elevate your self-awareness, elevate your social awareness, this practice that I'm talking about. And then you're going to be more impactful, more influential, and you're going to be able to give your gifts more. So I realized just in understanding, okay, in business, this is still coming up for you in some scenarios, not all, but in some. Okay, so knowing this, What's a different action that I can take moving forward? And you can do the same as well in your hiring process, in your professional opportunities, so that when that next time comes around, and there will be a next time, maybe with that client, maybe with that candidate, maybe with that opportunity, maybe with, but if not, definitely with another. In another situation, and so you'll have another opportunity to do better. And by doing these after action reviews on past undesirable outcomes or experiences, or maybe it was a positive experience, like I mentioned, maybe you had a positive hiring experience, but where were you feeling or process, where were you feeling stress, and what can you do? Is there something that you can do to alleviate some of that stress? Is there something that you were doing to potentially cause some of that stress? So I invite you to do these after action reviews. Maybe there's somebody in your organization, maybe a mentor, maybe a leader that has a strong hiring process, or maybe somebody in your network or organization that is particularly high in self and social awareness. I mean, you can do it with yourself, or you can do it with a coach, or if you are not working with a coach, I'm sure that there's somebody on your team that you can work with to talk through, okay, can you help me walk through an after action review? This is what happened here. And this way you're bringing some awareness to the decisions that are influencing your outcomes. So this is the takeaway part of the video. Definitely do your after action reviews so that you can improve moving forward. And it's just practice. Life is just practice. Sometimes that practice is not so much fun. We always want to be further along than where we are, but this is how you get there. And this is how you get there faster. And you want to use your emotions, use your instincts, not to make a rushed decision, but to guide your next step. What do I need to confirm this thought, this feeling, or what do I need to disprove this potential challenge here? And pay attention to those frustrations that you feel during your process. Where is the frustration coming up? And then why is it there? Frustration is often a sign that it could be a sign that we're ignoring our instincts. It could also be a sign that there's of a new direction that we want to go, or to improve our process in whatever area. It may be the hiring process, maybe in another area, and always go deeper. Ask yourself, once you acknowledge what it is you did, the choice that you made. Oh, I decided to interview 5 candidates or 3 candidates that really I knew were actually not a fit. And so how much time did I end up wasting there? And then how did I feel? And then what did I lose momentum on by? You get the idea. So just, but then the deepest that you want to go is the why you are making those decisions. Any decision that isn't serving us, we want to understand why we're making that decision. And the clue that's going to take you there is the emotion. Now, as a leader, you're busy doing so many things. I don't expect that you're going to stop, throughout your day often and take yourself down the psychology rabbit hole here. But when you do have a moment to reflect, this will save you time. This taking time to do this process will later save you time. Just quick after action review, but then continue getting curious about your emotions that drive that decision and why. And then that's going to ultimately help you moving forward. And if you don't want to take it from me, you can take it from Dr. Jeffrey Schwartz. Kind of hard to say. He's a research psychiatrist. I invite you to check out, he's got a 5-minute video on YouTube. I'm sure he's got books on it as well, but it's called the 4 steps, I think, to change your brain. 4 steps, or I think 4 steps to change your brain. So he's a research psychiatrist, and he's got a very simple reframing process, and it's about shifting your perspective. And the first step is, I won't give them all away. I'll let you check out his video for yourself. But the first step is acknowledging the emotion. Okay, so our emotions are clues. Even in the hiring process, when you're feeling that resistance and you ended up moving that candidate forward, maybe you ended up hiring that candidate, but they end up not being a fit, likely looking back, was often that point of resistance. So just this practice of learning to trust your instincts a bit more to help them guide your next direction, to find the additional information that you need, is going to ultimately help you make more of the right hires, and definitely to alleviate some unnecessary stress in the process. So remember, by respecting your your instincts, you're ultimately going to better respect and better prioritize your time. And this is going to help decrease burnout. And it's also going to help you be more fair to candidates when they're not a fit so that they can better prioritize their time. And then ultimately, you're going to have more time for leading. So then you're showing up better for your team. So remember to do your after action reviews. And of course, I'm here to support too. If you'd like to have a chat and dig a little bit deeper on a recent hiring experience or something that is frustrating you or challenging you in your process, I invite you to reach out. Happy to talk through it with you. That is it for this one. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you got some value from the video. And if you enjoyed and got some value, I invite you to please remember to like and subscribe for more. And I'll see you in the next one.